Welcome to this very special edition of the KJ Masterclass Live, the show which ensures that you profit from your time spent here with experts, either through their industry insights, information, or simply learning from them. And today we have with us Simon Copsey, delivery and transformation consultant to senior leaders, helps them unwind complex obstacles in weeks, not years. And we'll learn from him about management pitfalls that hold one's organization back, how to stop all those, and to apply the scientific method and modern management theory to lead happier, more productive teams that deliver better results faster. Welcome to the show, Simon.
Thank you, AJ. Thanks for having me.
You are welcome. Welcome to the show, Simon. Welcome to India in this online form. And I'm sure not just in India, but a lot of people across the globe will benefit what we are going to talk right now. We'll talk about how one can fix team dysfunction. We'll talk about a lot of other things. But before that, let's understand a bit about your journey, your background, your story, so that the audience knows who they are listening to.
I appreciate that. Shukriya, Dhanyavad. So I started out my life as a software developer, but I quickly realized what I was more interested in was what was happening behind the screen rather than on the screen. So how teams could organize themselves around problems and continuously improve their approach. And that led me into project delivery, but particularly transformation. So I kind of entered the deep, dark world of consulting and helping understand, like a doctor, why organizations weren't quite functioning as leaders had expected. And so when we talk about team dysfunction, I guess a lot of that's from the point of view of the manager. Why aren't the team operating as I expect? Why are there so many surprises? And I'd love to talk to you about that, or wherever you want to go.
Absolutely, Simon. So let's first understand about organizations itself. And you talk about, how organizations get in their own way. So why do they do that? What drives these organizations to go this far, to create their own obstacles? Help us understand from that mindset point of view, Simon.
Yeah, no, I love the way you put it, AJ, because the way you word it is very intentional, as if organizations try to do this. And that's a really kind of really nice way of highlighting that. Actually, I think it's unintentional. A lot of the way that we're thought to think and that we're thought to manage is to try and optimize each part in isolation. So when we're kids, as Russell Acoff reminds us, when we try to understand a toy, we take it apart and we try to understand all the pieces in the hope that we can understand the whole. And it's the same in organizations. When we're trying to improve organizations and help them function, what we're taught to do is optimize each team in isolation. But what we forget is that no one team in isolation can help the organization succeed. And therefore, what we have is conflicts between teams, and we have our results at the organizational level. We have trouble there. We have trouble with team members being happy and understand how they're contributing to the whole. So I think a lot of the problems come from there, our belief that we can break things into smaller pieces and optimize each piece, and that will help the whole. When in actual fact, we need to look at the whole to optimize each piece. That was a lot. What comes up for you before I go into detail?
Absolutely. So I want to understand this because, see, organizations are organizations, and many of them are very structured. They have from a janitor to the CEO to the board to the board of directors to everyone, so organized. And amidst all these things, everywhere there are managers, team leads, supervisors, CEOs, and then there is the HR also. And then there are other consultants also who come in between and try to solve problems wherever there is, and then get the teams working with the team. Why does it still happen? Why does these things lead and go to a situation where actually, something drastic needs to be done? Is it that, somebody must be incompetent, inefficient in the system, Simon? We got to understand, accept that.
Oh, that's really well put, AJ. I love that. So I think the first thing to recognize is your system or organization is perfectly designed to get the results it gets. If it needs consultants to come in, it's designed because to need that. So I think, and that's a quote from Deming, I guess, right? If your organization isn't functioning the way you want, it's because of how you've designed it, and we need to change that design. But changing the design of an organization isn't obvious. A lot of the way that us as managers, particularly me, learned originally how to manage was by watching other people. And a lot of the modern management books don't, teach you lots of art, teach you recipes, but they don't necessarily teach you how to bring those things together and where to focus first. So I think that makes it very hard. It's very hard to see the signal for the noise, and that creates these, I guess, these fragile systems. There's something else you said there. The other belief I have. So the first belief is that managers are trying their best, but we're taught incorrectly. We're taught to focus on the parts, not the whole. And that means we create things that are perfectly designed for this chaos, unintentionally. The second thing is that I believe people are good. And this comes from Goldratt, it comes from Akov, that people are trying their best. I think Deming has a quote, it's something like 95% roughly of problems that you see in organizations come from how they're designed as opposed to the people themselves. And we could argue that if you hire the wrong person, if you hire someone who is intentionally trying to do harm, again, that goes back to what is your hiring criteria? How do you choose where to put the person in the role? So again, it goes back to the organization's design and how it's trying to aspire to the results it needs. So what I'm trying to say, so first thing is managers often are set up to fail because they don't receive the training, the holistic way of thinking necessary to help your whole organization succeed. Secondly, people are good. They try to do their best. And finally, what constrains people from doing their best is the organization getting in the way as people. How does that sit with your question? Because it's a really good one.
Absolutely. Well explained, Simon. Let's understand this. So a problem keeps on happening within organizations, and it's not only one particular sector. I guess it's across industries. And then managers are not able to do anything. CEOs are not able to do anything. HR is not able to do anything. And then Simon Copsey says that he will come in and he will help them unwind complex obstacles in weeks, not years. Where have you got that knowledge where these people can't get it from?
Oh, I hope so, right? I hope so. And I think that there's a slight different approach here. There's nothing magical about me. What I use is the scientific method or the theory of constraints from Ellie Goldratt. And there's a slight difference here. What we can see is typically when we in organizations, the typical approach as a manager is when there's a problem, deal with it. When there's another problem, deal with that problem. So when there's attrition, try and change our bonus or incentive structure to keep people from leaving. When software delivery is slowing down, sets tighter deadlines, add more buffers. So we try and tackle every symptom directly, but they are symptoms. However, when we go to the doctor and we see symptoms for what they are, the doctor says, okay, all these things are not quite where we need them to be. You have a runny nose, you have a temperature, but they don't treat the symptoms at the symptom level. They recognize the symptoms come from somewhere. We trace them back to an underlying cause. And the great thing about that is twofold. Firstly, treating symptoms, at best, you might feel a little bit better for a day, but those symptoms will get worse. And the second thing is that many symptoms have just one underlying cause. So by getting to the underlying cause, we can create widespread relief with just a little bit of effort, rather than treating every single symptom. But that's what we do in organizations. We treat the symptoms. We're not taught to go back and ask why. Where is this coming from? What could be causing delivery to slow down? What could be causing costs to increase? What could be causing attrition? Where are these things coming from? And if we did ask why, if we were taught that, if we're encouraged to do that as managers, which we're often not encouraged to do, because it then scales into other parts of the organization, we would then find that at any one time, there's probably just one or two underlying causes for many problems. And we can actually get this leverage effect and create much widespread impacts like doctors do with much less effort. How does that sit? What comes up for you, AJ?
Absolutely. And since you are talking about doctors, let's also talk about how you talk about cholera. How does that relate to management also? Help us understand from that point.
Oh, AJ, wow, geez, this is good. You're trying to keep me on my toes. Okay, so cholera has been talked about a lot in, I think, management and systems thinking. And the reason for that was there was the father of epidemiology, John Snow, was the leader here, right? He was present in Victorian England alongside Florence Nightingale, Queen Victoria, Michael Faraday, all these amazing thinkers. They were in the same place at the same time. But what John Snow did was he recognized that the prevalent belief of the time didn't stand. the prevalent belief of the time was that disease spread through bad smell. I think it was called the miasma theory. And so a lot of the efforts of scientists and politicians was to try and just simply get rid of sources of bad smell. So shut down tanneries, shut down slaughterhouses in London, and then hope that would sort out cholera. The problem was that cholera wasn't caused by bad smell. Cholera was caused by waterborne illness. And what John Snow did for his entire life of, I think, 40 years was try to convince people that the common theory of how cholera spread was not what they thought. That if you eliminate bad smells, that won't treat cholera, that won't prevent cholera. What will prevent cholera is boiling your water, just that. And so the main thing there is, in order to create progress, in order to learn, in order to reinvent or kind of improve situations, the only constraint we have is our minds. The world is too complex for us to ever understand. And the same is true of management. The only thing that's standing in our way of helping an organization get closer to where it wants to be is the constraints in the minds of the managers, as Russell Aycock reminds us. So assumptions are what lets us down. It's not external constraints most of the time that stands in the way of organizations, it's internal constraints. It's the assumptions in the minds of the managers, the people who set the rules by which staff live. And so that was what I was trying to bring out, that if we can surface and challenge our own assumptions, we can actually see creative ways forward. What comes up for you?
Absolutely, absolutely, Simon. So how do you come into the picture when such a scenario is there? You talked about, theory of constraints in mind, and they still want a solution. And this problem has been there for quite some time. And it's also about their mind. How do you come in and change that mindset and also want them to, help them accept your recommendations, options? How does that work on the ground? Tell us a bit from the ground so that people know, okay. And also perhaps, get you into their team dynamics so that their team starts performing the way they should be.
Yeah, that's a good question. So the main approach I use is, well, firstly, you need to have a goal, because you can't make progress without a goal. Progress or productivity is progress towards a goal. If you don't have a goal as an organization, you're not moving in a single direction. You're trying to move everywhere at once. So first of all, we need to make sure there's a goal in place. A goal for improvement, a goal for productivity, a goal for whatever we're trying to achieve. And that might be maximize profit now and in the future. It might be something else, but whatever it is, we need a clear goal, something that we can measure. If we don't, we will never reach agreement on what the problem is. Then the second thing is looking at all the obstacles that are standing in the way of where we are today in the goal, and recognizing that there's probably a lot, but they all probably tend to come from the same or just a few underlying causes, as we discussed. And so we work backwards to understand where these things are coming from, and then we find just one or two constraints, one or two kind of underlying causes, key problems that we need to solve. And that's the interesting bit. This is when we tend to get into the psychology, into the assumptions. Those underlying causes of many problems tend to be due to an assumption that isn't true or is no longer true. So, for example, one of the key ones I come back to a lot is there's often a belief, and this is a belief I held quite strongly, that if we keep everyone busy all the time, we'll get more done in any given period. We'll be more productive. But the problem is, if we look out of the window and we look at the roads in front of us, we know that's not true. We won't get more cars to where they want to be by overloading the roads, by keeping them busy. We get traffic, and traffic gets gridlocked, and everything moves slower. So by launching more projects at the same time, keeping everyone busy means we're more likely to actually get everything delivered late. And if there's just one single problem, one obstacle on the road, everything gets delayed. So actually, conversely, what we want to do is have less on the road. We want to have less projects in flight. Then the time it takes to get every project delivered is quicker. There's less time spent by staff context switching. But these are non-obvious until you look at them you look at them straight on and go, is that true? So those are the kind of things that we uncover as we go deeper. But we have to go deeper, and we have to question those assumptions that are underpinning the constraints, that are underpinning the problems and getting in the way of the goal.
Absolutely. So once you leave a team which is very focused, and cooperation amongst them is in very high percentage. Is that how it works? Help us understand. Or does it, return back to the old dynamics as soon as you move out? Help us understand from can this be a consistent thing once they learn about it? What is your experience? Or they are only focusing on one simple problem, you solve it, you move out, they go back to their own trenches?
Your point's a very good one, AJ. So I think I'm still learning, first of all. So I think I'll always have a better answer. I hope in the future as I get older. I think so. I'll do whatever the organization wants to focus on, but typically a lot of organization wants to solve one problem at a time. But as you're quite rightly pointing out, that improvement is continuous. You solve one problem, and then you need to solve the next problem for us to continue to see gains in productivity. You're not just done. It's not one problem, and then you're done forever. So your point's a very good one. So I'll be wherever the organization wants me to be. But I think your point about stickiness of solution is very important, right? Particularly if this relates to assumptions. If what we're doing is we're going into organizations and we're showing that common belief isn't necessarily valid, and then we're leaving, if new people then come into that organization with common beliefs, common but invalid beliefs, then it's very likely that the work will be undone. Particularly if you're saying, hey, no, what we're doing now is we're slowing down work so we can complete faster, or we're stopping what we're focusing on finishing rather than starting work. If someone then comes in going and say, hey, people sometimes have a bit of free time, we could use that free time to get more work done, then suddenly this becomes undone. So I think that's a difficult problem. And I think a lot of it is, I still haven't worked out the right solution, but I think part of it is about making sure that we don't just teach people to why the current assumption is incorrect, but we give them methods for questioning it themselves. So by bringing them on the journey through using this toolkit, finding the invalid assumption, questioning it, then hopefully, firstly, they can continue continuous improvement afterwards. And secondly, if anyone else comes into the organization, they can more coherently help explain why we're doing what we're doing. I don't think that's the best answer, but it's the best answer I have right now, perhaps.
Absolutely, Simon. So you talked about the importance of mindset. How is it that these teams look at your work? Do they look at it from the point of view that this is how we can succeed? Or do they look at it that this is why we failed and they are exposed? What are the challenges that you face in your day-to-day work?
Oh, that's a good question. So I think one of the things I'm always anxious about is if we reveal one of these assumptions, right? It's an assumption that's held by management, and that can make them feel bad. They can come with a sense of, oh God, what have I done? This is really embarrassing. So your point's a very good one. People in management positions, they're doing their best, and they're all very intelligent, but we can't always be right because the world is always going to be more complex than we can simulate in our head. So we're always going to be wrong. It's just how wrong are we? And are we wrong in the right place at the right time? And I've made horrible mistakes as a manager, right? And that's, we only learn from mistakes. We don't learn by getting something right. Or getting something right only teaches us that we already knew what we thought we knew. Getting something wrong is the magic. So that's why when I'm working with managers, I try to be honest up front and say, this is going to feel a little bit uncomfortable because we might uncover something together that's a mistake. But that's great because it's also learning. But I just want to tell you up front so there's, you don't feel concerned. So I think kind of framing it carefully that we're probably going to find something where there's an invalid assumption behind the rule that's getting in the way of staff. Up front gives it the best chance of success to try and prevent that loss of face, to prevent, because we all need to learn, and different. This is natural. We're humans. We need to learn. The second part about, well, I think once we've overcome that, then because the tools that we use from the theory of constraints is a very visual tool. It's a cause and effect diagram which supports deductive and inductive reasoning. And so once you've kind of pictured out these are the symptoms caused by this, which all come from this, you can kind of see, you can tell the story very nicely and very visually, which allows it firstly to be debugged and scrutinized to make sure you've got things roughly right. But secondly, it means that anyone who then looks at this can start to understand it, going, oh, geez, yeah. Now I understand where this is coming from. Now I know why I need to focus here. So I think the tools themselves are just fantastic tools that, not mine, they're from the Theory of Constraints from Edward Goldratt, but I think they themselves help with justifying why we need to focus where we need to focus. But yes, your point is very valid that I don't want any manager to feel bad because they made a mistake, because they've done the best they possibly can, and they can't be omniscient and omnipotent as much as I wish I could be as well.
Absolutely. So you come from, if I understand, you come from a software background. Do you think these organizations who are facing these issues and team and everything, do you think they should be looking at solutions from individuals or firms like yours? Or should they again look into the AI part, and that is where it will come in and start looking, as they say, at different parts of the full management spectrum and pinpoint things if anything is not going all right? How do you see this whole thing of succeeding at any cost and AI in terms of the way the future is panning out?
Yeah, that's a good question. So I read that as two questions. One, should managers be coming to me? And secondly, let's talk about AI. So I think with the first one, right? Ideally, what I feel I've learned from the theory of constraints and from basically the scientific method. The scientific method is helping us question whether what we're seeing is coming from the causes that is what we're seeing caused by what we think is caused by. I'm putting it very badly, right? But it helps you is a way of questioning your beliefs and validating them. And but as much as I'm grateful that I have some ability to do that, I feel ideally every manager should be taught that. So ideally, as much as I would love to work with more people, and I hope I get to, ideally the outcome for me is that more managers know what this process, so they can do it themselves without any help. Because it's just a way of fueling learning, questioning your beliefs and checking whether they're valid and getting you to where you want to get to. That's just deductive, inductive reasoning. So I hope we can get to the point where managers could do that themselves, because then organizations will benefit hugely as well as staff. But to the second point, AI, as I understand it, again, I have a lot to learn. I don't believe it reasons. It's a probabilistic, at least LLMs, probabilistic, right? So I don't feel AI, whilst I feel AI can help from a creative perspective, kind of stimulate ideas, I don't feel, because it can't deductively and inductively reason, look at the situation and say, hey, what's causing all this stuff? Or what would happen if we do this? It can't kind of reason either way, in terms of cause and effect, or the other way around. I don't feel it's kind of the right thing for this problem. When people have gone through this process and worked out, here's the underlying cause, what should we do? Yes, maybe AI can help with brainstorming. I still feel the power of humans better in this case, because they can take into account the context of the organization and the things that they want to keep in mind as they design a solution, and they can do it much more effectively and iterate much quicker. But it's not to say AI doesn't have a place. I just feel this isn't the place for it, perhaps. And also, I feel, given the constraint here is helping people think logically, coherently, using AI could negate that. And I really want people to get into the practice of thinking using logic to understand their situation and understand why it is the way it is, like a doctor. And so kind of turning to AI too prematurely, I feel, could set us backwards. So AI is maybe good in certain situations where we need creative ideas, but this is not somewhere where I want to outsource the thinking, maybe.
Absolutely. There's much to learn about all this from you, Simon, and I'm sure a lot of people, a lot of leaders, organizations will want to learn more from you, about you, connect with you, want to be your client. What's the best way for them to do so?
Oh, well, you've got this wonderful thing. How do I do this? Oh, you've got this wonderful thing down here. This here is my website where you can find me. It's just got articles, a free book. If you want to have a virtual coffee and just have a little chat, I love learning from other people. So you can come by there. And I'm also on LinkedIn as well. But I appreciate that question, AJ. It's kind of you to connect everyone with me.
Wonderful. With this, it's a wrap on this very special edition of the KJ Masterclass Live. Thank you so much indeed for joining us.
Thank you for having me.